Came to your ears? Alright. I'll get to reading in my narration voice. The Stream Fanfic by Monato14. Honey, I'm home, Lydia, as his friends call him, yelled as he walked through the door to Chris in his third-floor apartment in Atlanta, Georgia. Chris and Lydia were both from the Midwest. Lydia from Illinois, Chris from Michigan, but they moved to Atlanta to build a better life together. Welcome home, dear, Chris said from the kitchen. How was work? It wasn't the most pleasant day of my life, Lydia answered, but it gets the bills paid. Allows me to live here with you. Lydia then proceeded to move in for the kiss. At the last second before their lips met, Lydia smelled the air and realized why Chris was in the kitchen. You're making my favorite, Lydia exclaimed. I didn't know you remembered that. How could I forget our anniversary? Chris laughed. It's the day that you changed my life forever. I love you, Chris, Lydia said quietly as he kissed Chris. 6 months later, Chris proposed to Lydia. Lydia said, absolutely, and the two were as happy as can be. Then Lydia met Patrick. I think this is the happiest I've ever been, Lydia told Patrick, who was laying on the other side of the bed. The two had just got done having adult fun. Not me, Patrick said. I don't really love you. I'm just using you for your body. At that moment, Chris got home from the grocery store and walked in on Lydia and Patrick in bed. Oh my God, a very shocked Chris said. I thought... Oh my God, Chris, it isn't what it looks like, Lydia said pleading. I think it's exactly what it looks like, Chris said. And to think, our wedding is in 2 weeks. We're done, Lydia. And after all of our fun, I can't believe you. That day, Chris changed his Facebook profile to single. Lydia cried for days. He couldn't get over Chris. He dated other guys, Callum, Arrow Garfield, and even Chris's brother, Andy. But none were the same. What Lydia and Chris had was magical. Lydia could only hope Chris felt the same way. 6 years later, Chris was married and had 2 young kids. His husband, Shape, or Tim, and him had met at a mutual friend's Christmas party 3 years back. They instantly hit it off and fell in love. Over the course of their relationship, they began to move to the realm of sexual relations. Their kids, Sebastian and Phoebe, were born on August 20th and November 4th. They never got along, but they loved each other. In the same 6 years, Lydia had gotten nowhere. He was a bum, living in a box on the corner of East and Maple. He had no friends, his family couldn't afford to support him, and he had such low credit score, the bank wouldn't give him any loans. Then he re-met Chris. It happened at a local diner. It was the place Lydia commonly wanted to beg. He was dropping by when he saw someone who looked vaguely familiar through the window. He went inside and realized who he was seeing. As it turned out, Chris was on a business trip, which is why he was back in Atlanta. Lydia and him had a nice conversation, but Lydia wasn't too stupid to put the pieces together. Chris had moved on. And he no longer loved Lydia the same way Lydia loved him. Later that week, Chris left to go back to his family, and Lydia was left in his box. Lydia died later that year. He didn't have a funeral or a proper burial. No one even knew he was dead. On the other hand, Chris became a millionaire and got into live streaming. His son Sebastian helped him become a variety streamer and became an important character in his stream. The stream ended up having some ups and downs, like all things in life, but it persevered through all. In the end, Chris left Shape and moved into the house of someone he met on the stream, Jay Darter. The two fell in love. Chris seemed to get all the men. This was the prime of his life, after all. They had a great relationship. Jay Darter eventually died of lung cancer, and Chris was left in disarray. He had no one left. His kids hated him for leaving them with Shape, who abused them. Shape hated him for leaving him, and he had no family. James and Andy, his brothers, were both murdered by a homicidal sociopath named Matt. The police tried to track Matt down, but he had always killed everyone put on the case. He once killed 50 men with his bare hands. Chris didn't know what to do. He eventually started living with his Xbox. That was named after his refrigerator box, which he lived in, on the west side of Birmingham. Life sucked. He eventually got infected by the rat plague and became a weeper. He killed and molested many civilians and minors before finally being killed by some bandits who attacked Whiterun. The end. There you go, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. I didn't write it. All the credit goes to Monato. Monato14, who's currently in the chat typing down there. Very fun.